Joining me here on the phone is your friend and mine, Boston Herald Patriots beat writer, and a guy who gets all the inside scoops. That, of course, is the great Doug Kyed, who joins me here on the Christian Arcand Show. Doug Kyed, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Christian. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm pumped up. We got a big party coming on Thursday here. We got the all-night Christian Arcand Draft Party Extravaganza, which I'm still putting up streamers in here for. Very, very excited and glad to be talking with you. This is our last full show. We got Sox games the next 2 days, so this is our last full show before the draft, and I'm just giddy.
Yeah, I'm psyched about it, too. I mean, it feels like this draft has been coming for like 3 months. So the fact that it's finally this week is somewhat unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. As someone who's covered the team for a while now, it's been, I don't know if it's ever happened in the time you've covered the team that they've had this many high picks in a row. It's got to be kind of weird for you covering the Patriots, knowing that they're picking at the end of the round and taking your best guess about who, if they even stay there, if they want to trade back. It's different. I mean, it's very different covering a team now that's in the lottery consecutive years.
Yeah, because it limits the players that you have to really pay attention to down to like basically just a handful. When they were picking at 32 every year, it was like you have to study like 90 players because who knows who they would take in the first round. Like when they took Cole Strange, I certainly wasn't prepared for that one. That was supposed to be a third-round pick. And like Isaiah Wynn, I remember distinctly when they took him, I was like, that's a guy I paid almost no attention to throughout the whole pre-draft process. So this is nice in a lot of ways because it's more exciting, but it also makes the job a little bit easier as well.
Yeah, it certainly does. And it seems like everyone's basically come to a consensus here that it looks like they're going to be drafting Will Campbell. Would you say that the organization has signaled that maybe? Is there been like, drips and drabs coming out that have pointed that way? Or would you say a lot of this reporting has more been process of elimination?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, people around the league expect them to take Will Campbell. So I think that probably plays a factor as well, is that they've probably heard from different people, and now they've kind of narrowed it down that, all right, it looks like the Patriots are taking Campbell, so then we'll have player A, B, and C available to us when we're picking. So, yeah, I mean, I was talking to some people around the league today, and a lot of them were like, yeah, expect them to take a tackle, expect them to take Campbell. So it certainly seems to be pointing in that direction, and at this point, it would be a surprise if they didn't take him.
Yeah, I think I'd be surprised by that, too. I do still think that my idea for trading up is not crazy. I think that the Giants would be much more open to it than like Cleveland would. And I just wonder how much Vrabel really likes Carter and if he would be willing to give up another pick in this draft or next year in order to just go that one extra spot. Because I think everyone kind of agrees. You talk about what they're saying league-wide. Everyone league-wide agrees that there's two blue chippers in this draft, and they're going 2 and 3. And if you want one of them, then you can maybe move up one spot and do it. But I haven't heard a whisper about the Patriots even considering that.
No, I haven't heard anything about the Patriots trading up, but I love the idea. The tough part about it is that, all right, so you trade a third or whatever it is to move up a spot, but then if you take Abdul Carter, then you still probably have to trade back up into the bottom of the first round to get your left tackle. So there's a possibility that you're coming out of the first 3 rounds, maybe even the first 4 rounds with just 2 players. So in some ways, it makes a lot of sense. You get a blue chip player in Abdul Carter, and then you really have to hit. There's a lot of pressure on you hitting on that left tackle because you might not be picking again until, let's say, like the 4th or 5th round there. But I like the idea. You get a blue chip player, you fill your need, bing, bang, boom. Your draft is almost over at that point, and you're coming out of it looking good. And you might ask, or some people might ask, like, all right, what's the leverage there for the Giants? Because, like, if the Giants are saying to the Patriots, like, hey, we might take Shedeur, how about you trade up? The Patriots could call their bluff, but the Giants also could leverage that against the Patriots by saying, like, hey, listen, the Raiders want Abdul Carter, the Jaguars want Abdul Carter, maybe the Saints want. So that's the way the leverage would work. I don't think the Giants can really trick the Patriots into thinking that they would rather take Carter than Sanders, but there is ways to leverage it using other teams.
Yeah, certainly. With Sanders in particular, I think it's interesting how he was talked about as like a top 3 pick, and then that talk really faded over the course of the last couple of months, even with what was considered, I think, a pretty good pro day or showcase day, or whatever that thing was in Boulder, and a very, very good season and a pro caliber offense. I'm a Colorado guy, so I'm obviously biased, but I feel like the shine really came off of Sanders over the last couple of months, and I'm not sure exactly where that came from.
I think some of it is that he doesn't have a defining trait. And, he's not very athletic, doesn't have the biggest arm. He's got a, good throwing motion, decent mechanics, but like there's not that one trait that you want out of someone. So that scares you a little bit. It's like, all right, is this guy Mac Jones? Last year, you probably could have said the same thing about Bo Nix. We'll see what Bo Nix looks like this year and moving forward. So it's a little bit scary when that quarterback doesn't have a defining trait. But my hottest take, my hottest prediction, my boldest prediction is that Sanders isn't even the second quarterback off the board this year. I don't know if that happens or not, but I do think there's enough teams that have soured on Sanders where I wouldn't be shocked if he really falls and then either Dart or Shao winds up being the second quarterback taken.
Yeah, I think Andy Hart said so. I think he was talking about Ewers, too, which I'd be shocked if someone drafted Ewers ahead of Sanders. But stranger things have certainly happened. One thing that the Patriots are likely to be targeting, I've seen this reported several places, is that they'll be in the market for a quarterback probably in the second round or, the second days. They've had so much trouble drafting wide receivers all throughout the Belichick era, and certainly last year. It doesn't look like they hit any home runs either. How important of a wide receiver draft do you think this is for the team, and what's the quality of the guys after McMillan and Hunter and the early guys in the first round?
I kind of like the guys at like the end of the first round, maybe even into the top of the third round. My favorite guy in that area is Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, just like coach's dream, perfect character, really smart. I think it was Will Howard, his quarterback, who was saying that like he could have sat in the quarterback's room. That's how well he understood the offense. That's how smart he is. So if they're able to if they wind up going with Campbell with that fourth overall pick, I don't hate the idea of them trading back up into the first round if they can get Egbuka in that spot. But there's a lot of good players there. Luther Burden, he had a really monster sophomore year in the SEC at Missouri. I like him around that area. Jaden Higgins, a bigger Iowa State wide receiver, Trey Harris, Jack Best, Jalen Royals. Like, there's a lot of very talented wide receivers there. Not first round types, but guys who should be better than the players they took last year, either as ex-wide receivers or kind of guys who can make plays with the ball in their hands.
And it seems like every year, Doug, that there's guys who go in the first round who end up being impact players, and there's diamonds in the rough that get found in the later rounds every single year who end up being productive receivers on every team except the Patriots. It's unbelievable. Like, all these guys, you see all these names, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Puka Nacua and all these guys. It's just the Patriots never hit on those guys for some reason.
I think the one thing that you might be able to, be a little bit more optimistic about is that, like, the Titans actually found one of those guys in the second round with A.J. Brown. So hopefully that was, for the Patriots' sake, Mike Vrabel and Ryan Cowden doing all of the scouting on that pick on A.J. Brown, and maybe they can bring back some of that magic and find their next A.J. Brown in the second round this year. But, yeah, like, you don't have to take a wide receiver in the top 5 picks or even the top 10. There are guys usually available in the second round or third round or even later, like you were saying about Amon-Ra St. Brown, who can make an impact. So this isn't a good draft to take a wide receiver in the top 5 or top 10, but it does seem like a really good draft to take one in the second, third round.
All right, so left tackle, wide receiver, what else do they need?
I mean, I think the third biggest need is pass rush, probably an edge defender. And there's a lot of those guys, too, who will be available in the top of the second round if they decide to go in that direction as well. The BC kid, Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M, I think he doesn't turn 21 until August 25th, and he was a guy who played really well in the SEC, so that's always a good sign. Just a bunch of really athletic, not overly productive edge defenders, but guys that, Mike Vrabel mentioned Daniil Hunter during his pre-draft press conference as a guy who didn't put up a lot of sacks in college, but then winds up coming to the NFL and is a monster. So could be some of those types in the draft this year who've got all the traits, just didn't necessarily put the production together in college.
What percentage would you put on them trading back, not trading up for Carter, but trading back in some form or fashion?
I think it's a move that makes a lot of sense, but I don't know, 5 to 10%, because you need a trade partner. So I don't think anyone at that point is dying to trade up for any of these guys who are available at number 4 overall. It's really unfortunate that this is the draft. The Patriots have the 4th overall pick, and obviously they could have fixed this by not winning in Week 18. But it is what it is. But like basically everyone that you talk to is like, this is basically a 3-player draft if you include Cam Ward, and the Patriots are picking 4th, and none of those options there at number 4 are overly attractive because Will Campbell is undersized. Armand Membu's kind of undersized and plays right tackle. Genty and Warren are both players who don't have a lot of positional value. Jalen Walker is undersized. Mason Graham is undersized. So there's no like perfect player, even at an area that's not a need for the Patriots there to take number 4 overall.
How much pressure is on Elliott Wolf here in terms of his future with the team? Like, this is 2 bad drafts. Is that it? I mean, you don't get 3 strikes in this business often, but would you say that would be a determining factor here in him going forward?
I think there's a way for the Patriots to spin it, where if this draft doesn't work out so well, then you can kind of blame it on Elliott Wolf.
Right.
But I do think that Mike Vrabel's got a lot of control here, and I think that Ryan Cowden's coming in, and he's got a decent amount of sway as well. So like, you can blame it on Wolf if this doesn't go well, but there's a lot of people to blame if this draft doesn't go well for the Patriots. So it's still possible that his job's at stake here, just because of the way that they can convince the Crafts of the way things went. And, most of the scouting was done before he came in anyway.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, it does feel like this is a Vrabel draft.
I mean, it was pretty shocking when Kraft fired Mayo after 1 year. It would be 100 million times more shocking if something happened with Mike Vrabel after 1 year. So if it's a bad draft, then you're pointing at Elliott. Well, that's just the way I look at it. So I think we're probably on the same wavelength as far as that's concerned. That's the voice of Doug Kyed of the Boston Herald. Doug, thanks so much. Great to talk with you, and I'm sure I'll talk to you on Thursday.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you, Christian.
All right, very good. Doug Kyed, Boston Herald, joining us here on the Christian Arcand Show. Check him out on Twitter. Check him out in the Herald. Great stuff as always.